Welcome back. Yes, indeed, we'll be talking about that incident that played out recently. Well, Dr. Dorothy Bassi, she's the president, Nigeria Environmental Society, as well as the former assistant director, health, safety and environment of the DPR. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, much as it's a tough one for the families there to bear,
Yeah,
but you know, for those who sometimes they look to the oil and gas industry, they just wonder, how come these kind of things happens time and again? You know, there usually are questions as to, does the industry sit back and ask themselves those big questions? What could we have done differently to change these kind of things? And if they do, people say they don't see all of those players. Are they justified when they keep saying that kind of thing from your perspective?
Thank you very much. It's a very, very pertinent question. And yes, indeed, when I was invited yesterday, though it was late, I said, someone must speak up. We need to tell ourselves the truth, exactly as it is. Yes, indeed, there is a regulatory agency. We have all the guidelines, we have the standards, we have the procedures, we do the monitoring, we do the inspections, we carry out audits, planned audits, unplanned audits. Yet, this is almost happening every 3 to 4 months. There is something fundamentally wrong. It's one thing to have regulations. It's another thing for people to understand the regulations. If you do not understand the regulations, for crying out loud, how then do you do the right thing at the right time? Now everybody's running helter-skelter. People are dying. People are dead. Buildings have been destroyed. Assets down the drain. But the question still remains, despite all that is in place, what is the missing link? For me, first and foremost, is understanding the regulations, the intent of the regulations. Why do we have the procedures? Why do we have the processes? We, in the oil and gas industry, we deal with a lot of individuals, business people, businessmen and women, business owners, those who, for example, are also our partners, NNPC. And we regulate, or we are meant or mandated to regulate the activities of persons working in the sector. However, I can tell you very emphatically, because I just recently carried out a study. And the first question is, are you aware we have regulations? Yes, we have regulations. Are the regulations adequate? Yes, they are adequate. They benchmark favorably with world's global standards. So what is the problem? One thing I discovered is that a lot of people don't not understand the regulations.
Even industry players?
Even industry players. Because while I was in the DPR, we had a lot of forth and back with major industry players.
I'm sorry, when you say they don't understand, is it they don't know the regulations, or they know but they don't? I'm not sure what that understanding
I would explain that to you. When you say you need to have barriers, I'm referring to the pipelines, for instance, because the picture shows very, very clearly that people are living in and around the pipelines. Years before, when the industry started, those areas were very remote areas, granted, in fairness to the owners of the pipelines. However, population has exploded. People are coming closer to and actually living on. But what is the intent? Why did we say have those barriers? Why did we say there must be a right of way? What does that mean? You own this pathway.
So they are supposed to ensure that those right of way is not encroached upon.
So what is missing here that I see very clearly, there's no stakeholder engagement. Nobody wants to die. But if your stakeholders, which are, of course, the people around you, do not understand the intent of or what you're doing, you don't engage them. Me and you will not go and stay there. We're educated. We know what we're doing. We know what is right. But the man on the street does not have any idea. And that is why these things are recurring. But nobody wants to die.
Also speaking about which, I mean, fuel stations in residential areas. That's another point where even it's the educated ones that cite them. And so residents, I mean, people don't seem to understand the kind of considerations that DPR or the regulatory body goes through before
Yes.
they approve all of those. So now that these kind of things are happening, they keep asking themselves, how come that you have so many of those fuel stations in residential areas?
Well, the fuel stations, there are three categories, I would say, of operators in the sector. The international community, the nationals, and the mom and dad businessmen and women. When I say mom and dad, you know what I'm talking about. You have the money and that is all you have. When you even go to the facilities and you look at the staff, probably somebody, oh, my cousin, my sister, my in-law, they are not suited for the job, but they want, because everybody thinks oil and gas is the only way they can make money in Nigeria. When I was there as the head of the licensing and permits, we had a lot of people with their briefcases. The department then ensured that there has to be a check. Who are these individuals? What are their antecedents? It's not about having money and throwing money around and ensuring that the things must be done in your own way. It's a global operation. The standards are global standards. What happens abroad must be the same that happens here. We cannot have different standards just because we are a developing country.
Okay.
And so you see people coming from everywhere into the sector with no regard, absolutely understanding what is it about.
Is the regulatory body helpless?
The regulatory body is not helpless, but as you know, as you and I know, there is no agency that will have the full complement of resources, financial or human resources, to monitor every single installation. And that is where technology comes into play.
So, beg your pardon. You said that you supervise the licensing.
Yes.
I mean, for anyone to operate a fuel station, for instance,
Yes,
the person ought to have a license.
Yes.
Someone, I mean, don't they cite the place where the person wants to put the fuel station before giving him the license?
A lot of times, the building is up. As you know, most of the buildings in and around Lagos State, particularly, is often condoned off. The next thing you see, there's a building up. So oftentimes, it is after the fact that you see that, oh, this is going to be a filling station.
So who
Certainly.
okay.
So because I was asking, I said, if the buildings just pop up and the next thing we see is a filling station, who gave the authority? The state. We don't give authority to build. But if you want to carry out an oil and gas plant, or you want to build an oil and gas facility or a plant, yes, you come to us. But some unscrupulous businessmen, they know what they want to do. They quickly go, get an approval. I don't know how they process that approval. Oftentimes, they say maybe they want to build a shopping mall or a shopping complex or just a duplex. But by the time those barriers are down, what you see is a filling station. We've had instances of people within the estate reporting to us that, and of course, those filling stations are sealed. But like I said to you, there are so many. And that is why you see almost every corner. And that is also because everybody thinks, once you hear oil and gas, oh, that's where the money is.
Some other, well, fuel station, we've talked about the pipeline fuel station, and then another one that, you know, we got a message yesterday talking about tank farms
yes,
around residential areas. In that vicinity, I happen to be, you know, around Festac on Sunday,
yes,
and I'm aware that there are, you know, tanks around communities, you know, habitable communities of people, where there are you know, trailer trucks for fuel, loading fuel, tank farms, and all of that. Whose responsibility is it to reverse this trend? Because, just as you said, and as you know, Chamberlain also mentioned, these are other disasters waiting to happen.
They are certainly waiting to happen, and I will still reiterate that businessmen and women, we have a very, very unfortunate situation on our hands. One, because most of the things we do is driven by money. Nobody cares about life. And when you find the tank farms there, they come to the department after the fact. What do? Somebody has invested that. We try to mitigate in the sense that you don't want to, you know, you don't want to deprive You know, it's a very, very delicate and difficult situation. We try to mitigate. Sometimes you sanction the operator completely and you seal up the facility. But by the time you go back to the office, there is an order from above. You know as much as I do what that means.
So you're saying this is perhaps not over? We'll probably have some...
It is not over. And the law says, upon conviction, and then you now take you now take the person to jail, or that in itself is weak. The department does not have the full authority to impose the kind of sanctions that will make people not comply.
Well,
so these are the handicaps.
So what then do we do? Are we completely helpless? Jimilin asked that the other
We
day.
are not helpless, like I said, and I will always propose stakeholder engagement. Even if the man refuses to follow the regulations, the people are around. You are coming to my vicinity. You're coming to my backyard. But if I do not know what you're doing and I do not understand how your operation is going to affect me, I'm going to sit back and watch.
But if the regulatory...
And then wait until this kind of thing happens.
If the regulatory body seems powerless, how will the people how much power will the people wield themselves?
No, what I'm saying is this. The community, the voice of the people. You cannot say the regulators are powerless. They are not powerless. But what I'm saying is that for better effectiveness, okay, and also for enhanced monitoring, a policeman will not police every single house. Similarly, a regulator will not stay at every single installation. Today, we are using technology, remote monitoring. We're using leak detector systems. Because at the beginning, on paper, everything is excellent. But a lot of installations must be monitored throughout the lifespan of the facility. And so when we get people on board, that is the community members, then they can fill in that gap.
All right.
That is my position. Because if you're leaving it for the government to do it all alone, then we're missing the point, unfortunately.
We all do have a role to play. We appreciate your time this morning. Dr. Dorothy Bassey is the president, Nigeria Environmental Society, and also former assistant director, health, safety, and environment of the DPR. We will be back in a moment and focus our attention on an equally important matter. Stay with us.